Welcome to weekly program بالأحضان, a show with an accent for those without one. We're talking about, activism in this country and how the FBI and law enforcement are picking out on minority, African Americans, Muslim Americans. They call it extremes index. How do they measure that in public school, mosque? It's beyond me. Also, out of all of this, we all heard about the 67 years old Palestinian Americans, Rasmea Odeh. She's been on trial last November, I think, and she's been fighting deportation. She's been fighting law enforcement, been accused her for all sorts of things, for being an activist, for being a supporter of the Palestinian causes. We have here a very special guest. We have Jessie Sundan. She is with Anti-War Committee. They had an event last week, streaming, talking to Ms. Odeh, nationwide event where people were able to ask questions and hear her, Ms. Odeh, hear her voice and hear her grievance, because she's actually not allowed to leave Chicago. Am I correct about this?
Yes.
So tell us about, welcome, thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
I attended that event that the Anti-War Committee took place in a very nice, warm, cozy place, and we had the chance. This is the first time I saw Ms. Odeh, and I listened to her, and this is a bizarre stuff.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit, how do you arrange it, and the chances that people actually listen to her grievance and what's been accused of?
Well, Rasmea has been in the United States for 20 years and a citizen for 10. In the fall of 2013, she was arrested on charges of violating her immigration procedures. And since that arrest, people around the country have been waking up and learning about her story and really trying to rally around her. The fact is that she's been on bond since October and not able to travel. But nonetheless, people have been following the events. A lot of people from the Twin Cities, but from across the Midwest, attended her trial in November, which took place in Detroit. But this was our first chance to really have her be able to reach people around the country, those that have been supporting her for the last almost year and a half now.
So what is she accused of?
When she's accused of unlawful for procurement of citizenship.
What does that mean?
The government says that when Rasmea came to the United States, she didn't accurately portray her past, and she didn't report her arrest by an Israeli military by Israeli soldiers, and her conviction in an Israeli military tribunal, and her subsequent imprisonment. They say that now, they're looking back at her materials 20 years after she arrived. We understand that she's being looked at, that this immigration charge is really a pretext. They looked into her past because of her association with the Palestinian cause, the growing boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement, and other activists who've been targeted by FBI investigation.
America is all about people being wrongly accused and arrested all over the world. So being accused by an occupier, a Zionist state, an apartheid state, for a lot of people, this is not. Is this a crime?
Well,
was it a crime, or a crime in the sense political crime, or?
Rasmea is absolutely innocent. She was convicted on the basis of a confession that was extracted after weeks of physical and sexual torture at the hands of her Israeli captors. That was the basis of her conviction.
We did not wear in the court that is forced confession will not stand?
In the United States, at least as I understand the rule of law here, it wouldn't stand. However, the judges in the United States have accepted the Israeli authorities' statements on the matter without reviewing the actual backstory. And when Rasmea was on trial in Detroit, she wasn't allowed to, in fact, the judge reprimanded her before she spoke and as she was testifying that she wasn't to make any reference to her experience when she was arrested, even though this is the basis of her now being prosecuted here and thrown out of the country.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was a shocking thing to witness.
This is like a CC judge, that is a
You
political...
know more about that than me, but I suspect you're right, yeah.
I mean, it's interesting how our law enforcement, with all this ideal text, constitution and all that, but it comes down to some white old man interpretation of something, or some, racist, or some whatever. So interpretation is more important than the text.
Yeah, the prosecutors in this case were extremely racist. In fact, she's not the first Palestinian that they have gone after. And one of the prosecutors in her case actually landed on their desk via a prosecutor that was responsible for prosecuting the Holy Land Foundation directors 10 years ago now. These are people who've made a career of prosecuting Palestinians in particular, but Arabs and Muslims in general. And Rasmea has been caught up in, they looked at Rasmea's case and I think they thought they could have an easy exit here. The fact is they haven't had that. She is an icon. She was the first woman to testify at the United Nations about the mistreatment of Palestinian women prisoners at the hands of the Israeli authorities. And the whole world knows her story. Certainly Palestinians everywhere know her story. And in Chicago, where she's lived for the last 10 years, she's an important community leader of the Arab Women's Committee. She works with 600 mostly new immigrant women and refugee women. She's a mentor and a leader and much beloved. And so
she's a tough cookie. I mean,
she's a tough cookie.
Almost 80 years old, and she was coming and she's very strong. And she's not intimidated by all of that.
No.
I mean, her life has been shattered, but she's a very strong woman. And she has a dream team lawyer, doesn't she?
Yes, absolutely. She has a number of fantastic lawyers. Michael Deutsch, David Cunningham, Jim Fennerty, and Bill Goodman are the team working on her case. And I think they did a great job. The fact is, even though the judge again and again tried to prevent her from testifying, it was very clear throughout her trial. They put Israel on trial. And
this is the thing.
Yeah, they put on the record the many crimes of Israel, even though, she was really gagged in large part from telling her own story. Everyone who was at the trial and the court record shows, the reality of the Nakba, the destruction, the theft of the Palestinian land. She became a refugee when she was a few months old. She was born a few months after the Nakba, the establishment of the State of Israel and Palestinian
So she
land.
is the story of Palestine.
She is, absolutely.
Why the media is not covering all this?
There's been a little coverage of her story, but the fact is, in the mainstream media, a lot of the stories have been heavily influenced by Zionist propaganda. In fact, present at her trial in Detroit was the brother and family of folks who people say that there were 2 people killed in a bombing. This is the thing that the confession linked her to back by the Israelis. Mm-hmm. Their family was at the trial, and the U.S. prosecutors hugging him during in between the proceedings and saying, we'll get her for you. Really, it was the prosecution and also the media has tried to paint her as a terrorist. And that's not who she is, and it's never who she was. She was always a political person. At this point, she was a young person, part of a resistance to try to
Palestinian
win Palestinian freedom back, Yeah, and so, but of course in the United States, the Palestinian story isn't often told with much honesty. So.
That's why you are here.
Yes.
But tell us about her. She's going to be on trial soon?
So the trial happened in November.
Okay. So what's happening on...
She was convicted. March 12th is when she comes for sentencing.
Okay.
She returns to Detroit, which is where the trial happened. It's where she first immigrated to the United States.
This is a federal...
It's a federal case.
So you cannot appeal?
You can appeal, absolutely, and she will appeal.
Okay.
The appeal can't begin until after the sentencing. That's sort of the rules.
Yeah.
But we're having hundreds of people are going to Detroit. I'll be there. A lot of people are coming from the Twin Cities, but of course many from Chicago. But I even know of at least one person who's coming from Florida. I think people are coming from all over. We want to stand with her at the hearing so that she's not alone. We want to bear witness, but we've also been working hard to collect letters to the judge asking him to be lenient in his sentencing and to not imprison her while she awaits the results of her appeal.
Her health is failing, isn't it?
Yeah, she had trouble. She was jailed after the initial verdict for a month. Through pressure, we got her released, but the jails are cold. You don't have blankets. She is older. She had trouble with her blood pressure, couldn't get her medication she needed. The fact is, for an older person, certainly for anyone, jail isn't a comfortable place. But it's really difficult.
So what is this trial all about?
Really, this
This
trial.
is an old woman. She is old. Obviously, she's not as active as she used to, but she symbolized something that this trial is trying to put on, put on trial.
Yeah, I think this trial is a trial against the Palestinian liberation movement, quite simply. And she's absolutely a hero of that movement and continues to be. And she's an elder to young people who are coming up now. We have college campuses across the country that have really strong campaigns as part of the boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement. And they're all under attack. And I think attacking an elder and a community leader like her is part and parcel of that same attempt to silence it. So, they haven't managed to silence Rasmea. We're still piping her in over the internet. And
she's inspiring a lot of people.
She really is, yeah.
So if somebody wants to come to Chicago or want to get involved in this, how do you get a hold of you?
I think the easiest way, they can check out our website for Rasmea. It's a national website. That's Justice, the number 4, Rasmea, Rasmea.
Justice for Rasmea.
.org. Or if they are local and want to arrange traveling together, they can email us at info@antiwarcommittee.org.
And we'll put this on.
Okay, thank you.
Well, thank you so much for coming here. Good luck with your effort. You've been a troublemaker, Sandin, but for a good things.
Trying to make a little justice.
Exactly. We need to wake up those high-paid judges, make them work overtime. Well, thank you so much, and good luck with Rasmea cause. And this is really what we're talking about, that the voices of our show and our program for the voiceless, and we try to be an alternative media. So come here and watch us, support us, and we'll see you next week. Assalamu alaikum, and God bless you all.